Hello, everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds. Let's try that again. Hello, everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet, about to be joined by Ken Weeb from the Winnipeg Free Press. Together, we are Kenny and Renny. This is the Kenny and Renny post-game show after an 8th straight win by the Winnipeg Jets at the grindiest. Yeah, that's not a word, but I don't care. You know what I'm talking about. Grindiest part of this season here, as the Jets, who usually start pulling a bit of a disappearing act around this time of year, are instead going out and taking on the toughest teams in the league, and the results are the same time after time after time. This game, I thought, very similar to the Washington Capitals game, in which the Winnipeg Jets found a swath of the game that they just took over. Now, when they played Washington, went to overtime, Washington clearly was able to push, impose their will at certain parts of the game to get back into that game. I think we saw that from the New York Islanders, who really made a strong push in the third period, and I thought owned the first, but not owned, but were, well, it was pretty even, but I thought they had a slight edge in the first period as well. But there was just no doubt about who was the best team in that game in the second period. And that's what the Jets do. They ride a 3-goal second period, and that's what wins them the game on this night. And that's them finding ways to, find ways to win. You can say this, you can say that. I'm not the biggest fan of that term for certain reasons. But if your idea of finding a way to win is taking 20 minutes out of a game and absolutely dominating your opposition, that's a good way to do this. You know what I mean? Like, here, the New York Islanders are a team that had gone 8-2 in their last 10 games. The Washington Capitals were the other hottest team in the NHL when they ran into the Winnipeg Jets, and the Winnipeg Jets beat them in overtime. And you're talking about good chunks of both those games that the Winnipeg Jets just basically were drowning their opponent with speed, with pressure, with skill, the way that they were scoring. And that's how they come out on top in those games. And this, to me, is as positive a sign as I've seen from the Winnipeg Jets throughout the year, because this isn't, finding ways to win is going out and, getting the right bounce here or the right bounce there. Finding ways to win is just, maybe being a little bit opportunistic with your scoring. Finding ways to win is your goaltender standing on their head and pulling it off, right? This isn't that. Like, that, someone texted me, KB sent me a message and said, this feels inevitable. And I knew exactly what he was talking about. Like, now, give credit to the New York Islanders, a super, super strong push. Connor Hellebuyck is brilliant down the stretch, and that's why that game doesn't get tied up. But it's too obvious that the Winnipeg Jets find a way to crack the code of their opposition and leave them befuddled, baffled, agog, just on their heels. There was just a time in this game where you could tell the New York Islanders really didn't know what to do. And I'll give credit to the New York Islanders ahead of a team like the Carolina Hurricanes, who we just saw in town, because the Carolina Hurricanes, I saw a team that just got frustrated and kind of gave up on the game. It was one of those things where you want it that bad, you take it. I don't care, right? The New York Islanders started to look to me like a team that was like saying, you know what, fine, hey, we've had a really good run here for the last little while. Let's just pack up the tent and head home. And then they said, no, we're going to keep going. That's what we saw from them in that third period. And so give them credit for making that a game. I thought in the end it was a good game. I thought when it comes down to it, the difference in those two games is that the Winnipeg Jets are a grinding team with the skills of an elite skill team. And that's really, I think, how I define the Winnipeg Jets, because they're great defensively. They've got a great goaltender. They're committed. They love to be on the forecheck. They are a grinding team, but typically grinding teams are teams that choose to go that route because they don't have the skill to go skill for skill with other teams, and so the only way they get in there and win games is they outgrind their opposition. I think it's a noble way to handle the situation. The problem with teams like that, and the New York Islanders are one of them, and if you think a couple of years back, the New York Islanders were that team with grind who came really close. They took the Tampa Bay Lightning to Game 7 in the playoffs twice, and they did it using that grinding game. But in the end, skill won out, which is why I think, Scott Arniel talked about all the different ways there are for this team to win games. Mark Scheifele said as much to me this morning in a one-on-one that you may have seen running in Hockey Central before we came on. But that's the thing about this team is they can beat you with goaltending. They can beat you. I think the most often way that they beat you is they're just so good defensively. They don't allow you inside to the home plate. You don't get to score, but they can beat you with, what we saw from that pass from Kyle Connor to Gabe Vilardi, a guy right on him, and yet cross ice pass, snap on his stick, boom, it's in the back of the net. They can beat you with Mark Scheifele playing catch with Gabe Vilardi with a bunch of guys standing around not knowing how to respond to it, and boom, it's in the back of a wide open net. They can respond, or they can jump ahead with plays like Cole Perfetti's absolutely gorgeous against the grain no-look pass to Nikolai Ehlers, who was just left wowed by that play. And then you've got guys like Iafallo who can do what he did in this game here tonight, and that's a guy off the fourth line. The Winnipeg Jets are everything to everyone. It's why they're first in so many categories. First in offense. Hey, and we haven't even really brought up the power play and what they're capable of doing, how many nights they win on the power play. The Jets can beat you defensively. They can beat you goaltending wise. They can beat you in special teams. They can beat you by out grinding you. They can beat you by out toughing you. And they can beat you by being as skilled as you are. That's how you get an 8-game winning streak like this in a season where they've already had, big win streaks that and these win streaks, if you can pull off multiple win streaks, that's what puts you in the scenario you were in. That's why the Winnipeg Jets are back in first place in the NHL. Yes, points percentage still belongs to the Washington Capitals, so we will see what they can do before they close out their schedule before they head into the break. But right now, enjoy it, ladies and gentlemen. Your Winnipeg Jets are back in first. They do it knocking off the other hottest team in the NHL, and they just do it in a way that I think, regardless of how close the score was, they didn't leave much of a shadow of a doubt who the better of those two teams is. That's my take on the whole thing. Time to bring in the man with the best music in the business for his take on the whole thing. Here comes Kenny. Kenny, I'm not as bold as you, but I'm trying to be like you. I can't get to the boldest, but I did go with a blue hue of shirt here with my gray.
Baby steps, buddy. Baby steps.
But purple tie alongside blue. I mean, I'll take it, but can't quite pull off the Dawn look. I don't look like I may have a secret night job as a hitman, so probably that's why I can't do it. But I'll tell you this, it looks good. I think I'm looking fine. We're both looking great because, of course, we headed down to Vittorio Rossi and let them do their magic on us. So if you'd like some magic done on your wardrobe, head on down to Corden Avenue, walk into Vittorio Rossi, loudly proclaim Kenny and Renny sent you, ask for Frankie and the boys, and they will do you up right. Ken, another victory for the Winnipeg Jets. How'd they do it?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't the cleanest of victories, Sean, at times, but at the same time, the second period, as you mentioned in the opening monologue, was, the Jets were solid in the second period, and sort of one of those games where they kind of took the spirit of their opponent, but really imposed their will in that second. And, they basically had all lines rolling again and got contributions throughout the lineup. And in the third period where the Jets got a little bit loose in terms of their discipline. And they took 3 penalties, and on one of those, the Islanders had 8 shots on goal and rattled a shot off the crossbar from
Yes.
Bo Horvat. So, I mean, some people thinking that the Jets were lucky. I mean, I wouldn't say they were lucky, but I mean, they definitely it got a little tighter than maybe they had hoped. I don't think they necessarily went to sleep, but just they sort of had a couple of penalties that they didn't need to take, and um, because of that, their opponent found their way to get back in the game. And again, I think this had more to do with the desperation that the Islanders are playing with, Sean. I mean, they'd won 8 of their last 9 games, and quite frankly, after that second period, I mean, the Jets, as you talked about it, they took over the game, and the ease at which they were getting zone entries. And I mean, that second goal by Gabe Vilardi, the game of catch with Mark Scheifele, like there were 4 people in the area, but no one was covering Gabe Vilardi. I mean, like that's a big breakdown for a team that's very defensively sound. I mean, how sound are the New York Islanders? I mean, some people may not be that impressed, but they've got 6 or 7 guys on IR or out of the lineup, and they're missing basically the equivalent of the Jets being without Josh Morrissey, Dylan Samberg, and to say it was Mark Scheifele would be an exaggeration slightly, but I mean, they're missing their most dynamic offensive player, even though Matthew Barzal's numbers aren't there to back that up this year, and Bo Horvat is leading them in scoring. But on their first power play, they have a guy they claimed off waivers, and the second guy in Tony DeAngelo they signed out of the KHL. So the fact that Patrick Waugh's team is in the race at all is a testament to the coaching and the ridiculous goaltending from Ilya Sorokin, who had given up 11 goals in his last 9 starts. 9 starts. With two shutouts in there, I think. Might have even been a third. Anyways, Jets, I mean, again, it's becoming it. I just don't think that people realize how difficult it is to put together 3 separate 7-game winning streaks and 2 8-game winning streaks within the first 56 games of the season.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, we know the Jets went on a heater at the end of the year where they won 8 straight going into the playoffs, but this is 2 8-game winning streaks, one to open the season and one during the, what did Scott Arniel call it? The doldrums of January, February. I mean, it's hard to do. I mean, especially when teams know what you're all about, and the Jets still find a way to get it done. And they're not. This isn't just hanging on for dear life type of thing. I mean, most of the wins are fairly decisive, even though, yeah, as you mentioned, I mean, Washington going into overtime, sure, but in terms of quality of play, the Jets have done a very good job here. I mean, high danger chances kind of got away from the Jets a little bit at 5-on-5, a little too loose, especially in the first period. They gave up 5 high dangers in the first, 6 more in the third. I mean, 12-6 overall at 5-on-5. So not a historic or traditional Jets win in terms of clamping things down defensively, but I thought the Islanders kind of got the game kind of turned on its head in the third because of the power play situation. I mean, Jets, your goalie's got to be your best penalty killer, and that's what Connor Hellebuyck absolutely was. But I mean, this wasn't a hanging on by your fingernails for dear life, or the other team just sort of took over the game. I mean, the shots were very decisive, but to me, a lot of that had to do with the power plays. And Sean, one of the power plays, they literally had 8 shots on net. So I mean, that's going to tip the game on its head a little bit as well. But overall, I mean, I think too. I mean, Cole Perfetti's pass absolutely ridiculous. Gabe Vilardi hitting a career high in game 56 in goals. Like this is and eclipsing 50 points. This is impressive stuff here. Again, they've got things to clean up. They've got areas to improve. They've got a few weeks before the deadline. We're going to get into what Mason Appleton said today and what Scott Arniel said. But in terms of the game itself, I mean, for the Jets, Sean, how many times have we seen the Jets kind of limp into the break? I mean, I think of that year going into Columbus where they struggled going into it, and then I think coming out of it,
had lost 5 straight. They lost 5 straight going into the break. Yeah,
and that was not good stuff for how they were playing. Now, we know that it's going to be a challenge for every team in the National Hockey League, a 2-week break. You have the equivalent of basically, they've never had this. I mean, you've had a 5-day break and a 5-day for the Olympic, for All-Star week or weekend. But I mean, it's going to be a challenge for everyone. But Sean, I don't see this as a problem for the Jets. I know a lot of fans are saying, "Oh man, terrible timing." I mean, We've seen them be focused through 56 games. Well, why in the world would they not be focused coming out of a 2-week break? I mean, this is only Adam Lowry and Morgan Barron get healthy. But at the same time, this is a team that has prided itself on, I covered, I followed, and you were at the Super Bowl when the Patriots came back from 28-3. Like the Jets have sort of taken on a do your job kind of Patriot like mentality, and all they're doing is focusing on the next opponent. They're not worried about what happened in the past or what may or may not happen in the future. Their ability to stay focused on the task at hand is one of the reasons they're atop the West and battling for the President's Trophy. I mean, it's not, it's not a sexy thing to talk about, but it's literally what the Jets have done basically since they showed up at training camp, and they've sort of carried that mantra, slight hiccup, if you want to call it that, through their toughest portion of the schedule. But for the majority of the year, and Sean, I'm going to ask you just straight up before I step back here. I mean, we've seen the Jets, kind of get swept away by their press clippings in the past when they've been at this situation close to the 40-game mark, maybe even the 50-game mark. I mean, Scott O'Neill flat out said it in the post game. He said, maybe they were overwhelmed by it in the past.
Yeah.
I don't see the stage being too big for these guys right now. Don't you agree?
Yeah, I was asked about this earlier on today. This is a Winnipeg Jets team. You've heard me say it. I think they're the hardest working team in the NHL. They win games night after night by outworking their opponents. They did that for the second period tonight. Put it this way: if you're going to allow a team to own an entire period, I don't like your chances, right? And even though the Islanders pushed back the way that they did, even though they started the game like they did in the first, if you are going to allow a team to grab momentum and roll it on you for an entire 20 minutes, you're probably going to allow, like they did tonight, 3 goals or something like that. And that's enough to bury you against the team that allows the least amount of goals in the NHL. That's the way it's going to go. But back to the point of the Jets being the hardest working team, I've said this before, and it's why, around that time right before Christmas when the Jets went in and won that game against San Jose, which, you were all upset with me because I was saying that win sucked. I still think that win sucked. And then they went in the very next game and, continued playing like that and lost the game to the Ducks. I think what the Winnipeg Jets have figured out more than anything else this year is last year and the year before that, remember, they were first in the West, almost fell out of the playoffs. It was nearly the biggest collapse the NHL had ever seen. And then you'd think they'd learn their lesson from that. But the next year they start to tail off towards the back end of the year. And we talked about it, how they hadn't beat upper echelon teams, but they were making hay against the lower echelon teams. I think what the Winnipeg Jets have done this year in, people talk about maturity and things like that. What they've done this year is they've become this team that very much understands where their success comes from. And what I give them credit for back before Christmas when they were playing those games, and again, a win that I thought sucked against the San Jose Sharks. If you could say that a win sucks, I can say it. I'm going to say it. But they caught themselves after that, and they corrected their course rather than doing what they needed to do in the past, which was just start losing and losing and losing and losing and losing, and then kind of have to panic their way out of it. They caught themselves and said, yeah, we actually haven't lost that much, but we know that this is not the path to victory. We know this isn't what makes us good. So the point I'm trying to get at here is the Winnipeg Jets, I think now more than ever, understand what makes them a good team, and they want to be a good team, and they're committed to putting in the work that they need to be a good team. So like Ken, I don't see them coming out of the break and being entirely lost. Having, I don't think their foot's going to slip off the gas pedal, and they're going to have a hard time finding it. I think if anything, and it's crazy to say when they go into the break after 8 straight victories, but I think this is only going to elevate the Jets game because I think they're the hardest working team in the NHL. It's hard to do what they're doing. You've got to work. So if any team can use a break right now, I think it's the Winnipeg Jets, just to kind of reset, recharge, let their legs heal at all. Like you said, a couple players like Morgan Barron and Lowry, let their bumps and bruises heal, and then come back. I don't have any concerns that this team isn't at a place where it doesn't know exactly what it needs to do to succeed and isn't going to come out of that. Now, maybe the first game, maybe the first couple games, it'll take a little bit of time to restart the engine, because when you're at this pace, you let yourself down. It takes some time to build back up to that pace, but the whole league is going to take some time to build back up to pace. I think this is going to work out great for the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah, and I would say too, Sean, I mean, we've talked about this a lot. I mean, how hard it is to play at this level in this system, which is an aggressive system in all three zones for 82 games straight for, as much as 60 minutes as you can get. I mean, Scott O'Neill said it, it's almost impossible to do it at, for 60 minutes at a time. But the fact that they've done it for the majority of games through 56 would tell you that right now it's a perfect time for the Jets to take a deep breath, to re-energize, to recharge, to get their batteries reset in order to come back. Because Sean, I mean, I still haven't done the math, but it's going to be close to 26 games in around 60 days, essentially, right? I mean, Jets are coming back on the 22nd and the season ends around the 14th or 16th of April. So, again, I'm not going to do the quick math here, but it's a lot of games in a short amount of time. There's only 2 back-to-backs left on the schedule, but the Jets have a heavy workload, as do most teams around the NHL. But this is when the fun starts. I mean, this is the beauty of the sport. I mean, this is when the games get fun. Yeah, I mean, people want to have a good start like the Jets did and go 15-1 out of the gate, but it doesn't mean anything if you fall flat on your face down the stretch and can't get anything done in the playoffs. So the fact that they've had this consistency throughout the course of the season and have firmly established their identity and haven't really strayed from it, that to me leads me to believe that they will benefit from this break. I mean, would they like to play a few more and keep rattling and rolling? Sure. But overall, it's a good time for the break to arrive. They'll come back focused and know that they'll be ready to go. They right now have 3 players that are going to be playing in the Four Nations face-off. Those are Connor Hellebuyck, Kyle Connor, and Josh Morrissey. There are some question marks around the Team Canada forward. Scott O'Neill, conceded that he had been in touch with Team Canada brass and that there are games until Sunday. So there's still could be some developments there. Whether there are or not, Mark Scheifele will adjust accordingly. But the majority of players will be off during the break. We've said this before. Our expectation is that Eric Comrie will start the first game out of the break to give Connor Hellebuyck a little bit of a breather after competing at the Four Nations face-off in what will be the equivalent of playoff games, probably in terms of intensity and volume and workload and all of those things. So coming out of the game against a desperate St. Louis Blues team who, suddenly have, rumors about whether or not their, captain may be available in the right deal. I mean, that's generally not something that a team wants surrounding their team. So it'll be interesting. It won't take long for the Jets to get back to being ramped up and ready to roll. But I mean, the fun part of the season is around the corner. But I mean, all signs point to the Jets being able to handle it. They said all the right things. I thought it was interesting, Sean. I mean, before we talk too much about the game, what did you think of Dylan DeMello's assessment when he was asked by Kelly Moore if he thought the team was how the team was playing in relation to that start during the stretch now that has reached 21-6-3 after the 15-1 start that had this 3-7 hiccup in the middle. Where do you vote? Similar?
You're gonna have to take that one because I was busy one-on-one with Mark Scheifele, so I wasn't.
Yeah. Sorry. So DeMello said that he felt that there were some areas that were better. I mean, some areas still need improvement, but the fact that the Jets have been so good within their structure, he feels that some areas they might even be, even though the record doesn't reflect it, they might even be playing better in some of the areas. And I mean, as you touched on, I mean, the Jets are top ranked almost everything. So
I can give my assessment.
Sure, that's why.
His is important, but clearly, and more important than mine. But I'll say this: this is the time of year where the Jets usually falter. This is the time of year where it gets hard. We saw a lot of teams come rolling in when the Jets had that start that they had, and they were teams that were just they were embryos hatching back then. They were trying to figure out who they were. They weren't there. This is the time of year where if you don't know who you are by now as a team, you're not going to get anywhere. The Jets have played far too many really good clubs over this 8-game stretch who know exactly who they are, who know exactly how to play, who know exactly how to succeed the best that they can succeed. And the Jets are taking it to those teams. So I'm far more impressed by, it was a great start at the beginning of the year. I still think, what 11 of their first 13 games were against below the playoff line teams from last year. So it's going to take some time getting going. I do think that schedule, it was aided by the way that the schedule played out and the teams that they were playing. Don't want to take anything away from it, because the Jets came out ready to play when a lot of other teams weren't ready to play. But it doesn't. The Jets now are ready to play, but so is everybody else, and the Jets are still taking it to them. So I'm far more impressed by what the Winnipeg Jets are doing now than what I saw them do at the beginning of the season.
Yeah,
here, I want to go to something else here quickly. I'm going to give the Pristine Roofing wake-up call. Where does this? Oh my goodness!
I'm sorry, 26 in 50. So Gregory gave me the wake up. Sorry, it's actually 26 and 50. So I mean, a game every other night almost. Sorry, not 26 and 60. So
okay, Pristine Roofing wake up call. I've seen a couple comments like this. Disgruntled Wheat says, "I was at the arena tonight. Not the best effort by us, but we win. TCB Lamplighter, IFL, one man wrecking crew. Not to that. This is the thing I'm talking about. So." You can't just say that the second period is the Winnipeg Jets and the other periods aren't the Winnipeg Jets. That what the Winnipeg Jets look like when they're on top of their game is dominant and absolutely destroying everybody. And then when the other team flips the script and starts making that push, that it's like, oh yeah, well, the Jets just stopped trying there. That's arrogant. That's like ridiculous. Teams are able to push. And the reason I think it's Pristine Roofing wake-up call territory is because if you're going to just try and say, yeah, the Jets just stopped playing and they weren't trying anymore, but when they try, they dominate everybody. But when the other team does good against the Jets, it's because the Jets aren't trying. You're missing something, because I think there is something to be looked at in that third period, especially by this Islanders team. Here's a hint. After I do the Pristine Roofing wake-up call, this third period just pop that down for a second. This third period reminded me very much of the third period against the Washington Capitals. So I want to get into that after we do the Pristine Roofing wake-up call. But if you're one of those people who's always tempted to think that when the Jets are playing good, nobody else touches them, and when the other team does good against the Jets, wow, that's clearly the Jets aren't trying right now. You're missing the point of trying to figure out where the holes are in the Jets lineup or in their game and the things they need to address. So that's deserving in my mind of the Pristine Roofing wake-up call. And you know what that means. Time to give North End Rick the Pristine Roofing wake-up call at 204-981-6289. He's the guy you want down at your place for all your roofing, siding, and exterior needs. And of course, you can call Pristine Roofing directly at 204-237-7663. Had a conversation with Rick today. Really interesting stuff. I don't want to get political here, but with the threat of tariffs, and I know this because Renny used to be Renny Roofing out there falling off roofs. Maybe he'd even get your roof done before he fell off that roof. But I can tell you this, half the job or more when it comes to these kind of things is the material costs. And if those materials are coming from the States, and if those tariffs come into play next month, like the threat is dangling like the sword of Damocles over everybody's heads, that could make the cost of your project skyrocket. So a note from North End Rick, who said to me, there's nothing that they can't get done for you in between now and the end of next month. So if you do have one of those jobs that you have been waiting to do, exterior, siding, any of those things, your roof, it can be done in the next month. And if you do get it done in the next month, you get it done before the threat of tariffs has the potential to wreck the Canadian dollar like it did last week, although there's been a little bit of a rebound after the tariffs disappeared. But also it could mean that the cost of your siding, your shingles, which we all know those kind of things have their cost to them, you could bring those costs for your project way down. If you're waiting, maybe decide not to wait. That's a good Pristine Roofing wake-up call in itself by North End Rick. So what I took away, Ken, from that third period is I thought that the New York Islanders learned. They learned what they needed to do to have success against the Winnipeg Jets. You could see them trying to pass it around in the beginning, and it was almost like they put the cart before the horse. Then they started grinding and just getting it to the front of the net. And what I saw at that point was they finally got the Winnipeg Jets defensively to collapse, and that's what allowed them to possess the puck more and kind of pass it around the horn and get the more opportunities that they get. Now, no doubt about it, Connor Hellebuyck stood tall, and this game is probably a different outcome if he doesn't towards the end of the game there. But what I think I saw here, Ken, never mind, what I saw is the same thing that I saw in Washington, was that when a big, heavy team finally figured out that their best measure of success was to just push the puck to the front of the net and go to war in front of that net, I saw the Jets looking a little bit vulnerable in this game, the same as I did against the Washington Capitals. We talked about that last game against the Capitals, where I personally thought that Josh Morrissey and Dylan DeMello had a little bit of trouble handling the size and the weight of that team. I think I saw the same thing here tonight, kind of on a grand scale. Am I crazy, or did you see something similar?
I wouldn't say that you're crazy. I mean, there's a level of desperation that the Islanders can have that the Jets can't have. I mean, the Jets are in a comfortable position. That doesn't mean that they're not pushing, but I saw the Islanders definitely crank it up to another level. And yeah, I mean, there were some times when the Jets, again, these are big-bodied forwards, a lot of them, big, strong guys. Anders Lee being one of them that we talked about in the morning. Anders Lee has 17 goals now in 21 games against the Jets. I mean, this is this is a guy who's hard to handle. He gets to the net well. I saw a lot of tip pucks. Siplikov had a good tip where Hellebuyck had to make a good save. I mean, great save on Cizikas. Yeah, and I thought the defense pairings as a whole, I mean, were okay. I mean, it was definitely a tougher night overall for Pionk and Sandberg. I mean, it was definitely not their best game. They played a lot of great games. I would not put in that category. Again, I'm not dumping on them, but again, the pass to Sandberg on the first goal by the Islanders, kind of the pass from Vilardi. I don't know if it actually jumped over his stick or it was just a miscue there. Unlucky for Pionk on the second one, but also unlucky for Appleton. And I just want to get into this. I know this wasn't in the third period, Sean, but a lot of people saying, what's Appleton doing? Appleton is the right winger, folks. So Mason Appleton can't fire the puck on his forehand up the right wing boards. That is where he is supposed to be. The safest place for him to move the puck is either a D to D to the corner, but he didn't see Pionk skate there. I know a lot of people dumping on Appleton, that's not the right play. Well, he can't use the front of the net as a supporting area because it was too dangerous to go that way. And he can't, like I said, you can't rim it around to your own side of the boards because you're supposed to be there and you have vacated that area. So the sort of the D to D play with him being the down low player, trying to get it to the left defenseman or eventually to the left winger was the right play. It just Neil Pionk's skate happened to be in the way. And that's why there was it looks like a coverage error because there's no one there, but you're not expecting the puck to go off the defenseman there. Anyways, not trying to ramble on about something else. I mean, I just think the Islanders did a good job of going to the hard areas, Sean, and you don't go 8-1 in this stretch of the season without going to the hard areas. And I think that was just an example of that. I mean, I'm not dismissing your theory. I'm not.
So you're very comfortable with how the Jets have handled.
Well, it's something that they're going to have to do better in the playoffs. We know it is something they struggled with against the Islanders. I'm not disputing that portion of it.
Yes, okay.
I didn't think that. I'm not necessarily. I mean, I just think that the Islanders did a good job of getting to those spots. I'm not to the point where I think it's a problem for them, but I mean, it's definitely something that's on our radar for sure.
Well, it's something that has to be put it this way. Kevin Shoveldayoff has to decide whether or not he thinks it's a problem in the next little while, because if he does think it's a problem, it's something he needs to go address at the trade
Absolutely,
deadline.
Sure. And I mean, I think that he'd be looking for that anyway, whether he thinks it's a problem or whether he wants them to be better at it. I mean, it's whatever wording we want to use. I mean, we're in agreement. I think we think the Jets are going to be looking for a bigger physical defenseman for the third pairing. There you go, Alex99. Luke Shen could fix that. I mean, we've mentioned Luke Shen as a possibility. We've mentioned Jamie Alexiak, guys of that nature. I mean, that is something that would be beneficial to the Jets defense core. I mean, I know people have been dumping on him for a long time. I mean, Logan Stanley has kind of quieted a lot of the people that were going crazy lately. I mean, I thought he was steady today. Here's Colin Miller. Colin Miller had, a steady game. I thought he was physical, involved in the game. I thought the Morrissey DeMello pairing had a pretty solid outing. I mean, again, like I said, Sandberg and Pionk have been great this year. I just didn't particularly like their game. It wasn't at their A game level, is what I would put it. And again, I'm not just dumping on two players here. I'm just saying that I don't think they would have been thrilled with that performance overall. But I mean, the Islanders had something to do with that too.
I'm just going to switch gears and go to Alex99, who says the first two Isles power plays, the Jets had more scoring chances than the Isles, who only had one shot on net on the two PPs. Boy, oh boy, this is payoff territory, the way the Winnipeg Jets stuck with their penalty kill. Holy smokes. I thought it looked great tonight at the beginning. I mean, like dominant, and Alex99 is 100% right. The Jets looked like the far more dangerous team. And to be honest, in that second period, when we saw those power plays, I really do think that it kind of unlocked something in the Jets. Like there was a little more space on the ice, and they seemed to be the more aggressive of the two teams. And it was almost like that was the blueprint to being like, okay, maybe if we just get more aggressive against this team, we can get them on their heels. And I feel like that had something to do with that second period. Regardless, the Winnipeg Jets penalty kill is paying off, and the idea of taking star players like Kyle Connor and throwing them on there has been paying off all year, no doubt. And hey, if you're looking to pay off high interest credit cards or debt, we suggest you go talk to our friends at Cambrian Credit Union about their payoff loan. They can show you how taking out a loan to pay off your debt actually gets you debt free faster, and you can save thousands of dollars. Go to cambrian.mb.ca to book an appointment online. Why don't you give Sweet Lou a shout out while we're here?
For sure. For folks who have realty needs you'd like to have met maybe during the Four Nations face-off break here over the next couple weeks, or whenever you're interested, contact our main man, Lou Ferlin at Rolla Page Dynamic Realty, 204-791-9971, or at the office, 204-989-5000. His email is lou@louferlin.ca. That's LOU@LOUFURLAN.ca. Lou Ferlin, excellent realtor, excellent human being, and excellent supporter of our community, including our podcast.
Love the lines, kind of like the Boo Earns line when people were talking about what was happening when the American national anthem, and people are like saying, no, they're just shouting Lou. They're shouting Lou. Hey, this has been shouted a couple times. Lou says Renny needs to put on the headband or his tie if he hasn't found his headband. Haven't found the headband, but the tie worked last time. Man. I think it's probably going to work again. So let's make this a Sean's headband version of the Kenny and Renny show. I cinched this bad boy up pretty tight, so if I have any bad takes going forward, we know where they came from. Okay, I wanted to say something that I thought was very interesting. Clearly, Connor Hellebuyck goes into Connor Hellebuyck God mode.
Sure.
And at the end of the game, clearly, I think a lot of people are going to go with Cizikas, the save on Cizikas for the keg save of the game. That's a smart place to go, I would suggest. But it's nothing we haven't seen before with Connor Hellebuyck. He definitely keeps the Jets in this. It's probably a different story if he doesn't do that. I like Scott Arniel especially when dealing with other media who come rolling into town and start asking the questions about basically this team being a team that relies too much on Connor Hellebuyck. I also am irritated, like Scott Arniel is, when he gets those questions, because when you ask that question or you basically suggest that, what you're suggesting is that the Winnipeg Jets are not as good a team as what they are and what they've shown team defense. I thought this game was a perfect example of that, because I don't think Connor Hellebuyck had his good stuff at the beginning of this game. I actually think he struggled. The first two goals that went in, I didn't think they were the greatest goals. So all of a sudden, 8 shots, 2 goals in the back of the net, and I'm starting to think, okay, is this going to be one of those nights where it really piles up on Connor Hellebuyck? And it doesn't. And there's one reason why it doesn't, because after Connor Hellebuyck allows the second goal, the Winnipeg Jets as a team take over that game and just stop allowing the New York Islanders to get shots on Connor Hellebuyck. So it's interesting because the Winnipeg Jets, there were so many parts of that game where they did well, and clearly right towards the end of the game, the New York Islanders took over, and the Winnipeg Jets weren't able to elevate to where the New York Islanders did. And in that moment, Connor Hellebuyck was there to save the day. But I would suggest earlier in the game, Connor Hellebuyck was not having his best game, not doing that well. And instead of us talking about a game that ended up being 3-1, 4-1, 5-1 early and getting out of, control, and the Winnipeg Jets losing that game, and us saying, okay, well, Connor Hellebuyck had an off night or whatever, it is all hidden. It is all swept under the rug because the Winnipeg Jets say, I gotcha. We got you covered here. In fact, I'm going to give this my Johnson Group got you covered play of the game, just in the play of the Winnipeg Jets, who, when Connor Hellebuyck did not have his A game, just basically took the New York Islanders out of the equation and said, don't worry, big fella. You've had us a million times before. We've got you tonight. You get your feet under you. We're probably going to need you at some point later on in this game. But right now, when you don't have it, we've got it, and we won't give them a sniff of anything. That's what I saw in that situation. That's my Johnson Group got you covered play of the game. And hey, do you run a small business in Canada? Look to Canada's #1 employee benefits plan, Chambers Plan, to give you a competitive edge. Chambers Plan is the simple, stable, smart choice for over 30,000 businesses countrywide. Visit chamberplan.ca to learn more. And that is the Johnson Group got you covered play of the game, the Kenny and Renny OGs. Ken, I've said it before, the Winnipeg Jets are extremely lucky to have Connor Hellebuyck, but I've said this before, it goes both ways. Connor Hellebuyck is extremely lucky to be playing behind the Winnipeg Jets, and I thought tonight was another example of this. I think this happens more often than people thinks that it happens. This is the first game towards the end that I've seen the need for Connor Hellebuyck to bail out the Winnipeg Jets. I'd said this before, I believe, 8th straight victory. I've thought for, their 10 victories before that, I haven't seen the need for Connor Hellebuyck to be a Vezina caliber goaltender for them to win. Again, back to the original point, when I hear, it's like nails on the chalkboard for me when visiting journalists come in and they ask that question, because to me, it's just they are missing the point here that the Winnipeg Jets not just are a team with a goaltender, they are actually an amazingly great defensive team, and Connor Hellebuyck, as good as he's playing this year, is benefiting from it in a massive, massive way.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't like the first goal. I think that Connor Hellebuyck was obviously reading pass on the play by Holmstrom, and actually, quite frankly, I think Holmstrom was planning on passing, and then he saw the 5-hole open up, and then I think he actually adjusted to shoot on the play. Second goal, I mean, is more related to the turnover, but yeah, I mean, it wasn't this is, all due respect to Mark Gatholm, going to the backhand. I think he kind of actually flubbed the backhand, so I mean, it didn't look great. Some people talking about the Palmieri goal that didn't like it, but I mean, that was more coverage. I mean, the guy Palmieri is wide open in front. Hellebuyck makes the initial save, and Palmieri finds the rebound, and it just seemed like Samberg and Hellebuyck kind of got tied up with one another. So I mean, I don't blame him on that one by any stretch. But yeah, I mean, he wasn't at his sharpest, and then he cranked it up and like I said, stopped 8 shots alone on the one power play. After the Jets were the more dangerous team on the power play earlier on when they were killing the penalties. So, yeah, I mean, Connor Hellebuyck's body of work speaks for itself. No, like, the Jets are not a one-man show. They're not, this isn't just one guy with a Herculean effort putting the team on its back. But it is in concert, though. I mean, the Jets are sound defensively, but I mean, they also have the last line of defense. And as Kelly Rudy always says, you don't need to apologize for great goaltending. But again, the Jets are first in enough other areas that they are not just being, carried by a elite level goaltender who is at a ridiculous level right now. I mean, that's just simply is not it's just simply inaccurate. But again, I don't think we should. I know you're not diminishing it, Sean. That's not what you're saying. I'm 100% in agreement with your take. But I mean, Hellebuyck's season has also been accepted. It's Vezina quality goaltending. I mean, we're not disputing that fact either. Just the Jets are a deep hockey team that don't have a lot of holes. I mean, they have some areas they could definitely improve on. But I mean, goaltending is the least of their concerns. But as we talked about after the last game, when one of the best teams in the league gets beat by a backup goalie, and not just beat, but shut up, blanked, that again shows the depth that the Jets have and the structure that they have. And again, Eric Comrie had to make some big saves that night as well. I mean, that's normal for a team to have goaltending that is solid. I mean, that's if you don't have goaltending, you have nothing. So, I mean, the Jets are quite confident with what they have between the pipes, but I mean, this isn't the only element of their team that has made them successful. That's a wake up territory take for sure.
You know what I would say about this? Like, for those who think I'm demeaning Connor Hellebuyck by suggesting he wasn't a god from the drop of the puck to the end of this game and he couldn't have possibly stopped any of those shots, I'll say this. One of the things that makes him great is that I don't think he was having a good night. And then, and I'd still give credit to his team for cleaning things up so that he could get his feet from under him, or get his feet under him. But he got his feet under him. And then he went out and he put his stamp, he put his mark on that game. I think a lot of people don't get there. So it's interesting. I like to try and translate these things to real life. My daughters, they're curlers. They did a really good job. They won their club championship last year. Now they've moved in. My daughter, she's the skip. She's 13. They're playing in a league with 17-year-old boys. So there's a lot of learning lessons. And one of the lessons that they're having a hard time learning is they'll go up like 5-0 in a game, and then they'll just fall off, right? And so what I keep telling them is, listen, it's human nature to sag, right? Like, to think that you've got this taken care of. It's hard to keep going at 100% when you are blowing your opposition out of the water. But they've lost a number of games this year where they went up big and ended up losing the game because they just stopped shooting well, because they took themselves out of the game. And what I say to them, while it's human nature to do that, as an athlete, you've got to find a way that when you fall off your standard, you've got to find it again. And that's what good athletes do. People will tell you there's no such thing as a 60-minute effort. And when things are going well, you ride it as long as you can. Sometimes it falls off. But then the really, really good players find a way to get it back. Connor Hellebuyck did that tonight. He didn't have his best game, but he found his way to find the best version of himself in time for it to put an imprint on this game. And again, the Winnipeg Jets walk away, that Cizikas stop. I mean, that's a tie game right there if he's not there to make that save. So greatness can look different ways, and greatness doesn't mean that he's great all the time. Greatness means that he can overcome not being great and find a way to be great again. And that's what I thought I saw in the game here tonight. Anyways, Ken, we got a little bit of time. Or do you want to? Oh God, we got to talk about Gabe Vilardi and where he's taken his game to.
Yeah, impressive stuff. I mean, so what do we got here? I think I starred something. Waiters. Already up to 24 with 26 to go. Can he reach 30? I mean, I'm not 40. Again, I said earlier this year, my prediction was 35 for Vilardi. Still feel comfortable that he'll hit that number. I think with the hot streak, he could reach 40. It won't be easy to reach 40. That means basically 26 and 26. I mean, that's asking a lot of any player, especially down the stretch when the games get harder, the goals are harder to come by. But I do think he'll still hit 35 plus, and I wouldn't rule out 40 by any stretch. I mean, what he's doing is exceptional. He's done an incredible job, and we understand health is a big part of this scenario, to the point where, Scott O'Neill felt he had to knock on wood on the podium and the lectern when he was talking, when I was asking him about what it has been like to watch Vilardi blossom. But I thought what O'Neill said was very important. I mean, sometimes there's just a passenger on that third line people or first line people just talk about Scheifele and Connor and the chemistry they have. I mean, Gabe Vilardi is no passenger. He is not just he is a very much a complementary piece, but he is an equal part of the 1/3 collection of that top line. And that's a testament to Vilardi doing the work to keep his body in a position where he's able to play every game to this point, 56 of them. And what he does without the puck is also equally important. And to me, I'm thoroughly impressed by Gabe Vilardi, what he's done, the work that he does. I mean, he's always, complimenting the players that he plays with, and rightfully so. But those other players are really enjoying playing with Gabe Vilardi, Sean. I mean, this is a job that Blake Wheeler held for a very long time and played at a very high level for a long time. But Gabe Vilardi is playing at a very high level right now, and he's part of what's made that line as dangerous as it's been to have two of those guys at 30 already, and the third member of that line already at 24 through 56 games. I mean, it's been very impressive. We talk about the things he can do with his stick, and he's wanting to score more from distance. Today's shot was absolute beauty, bar down special, back bar. Nice job of catch back and forth with Scheifele. But I mean, Vilardi has been excellent for the Jets, and quieted a lot of those people that said that Vilardi shouldn't necessarily be on that line.
Well, the one thing I find about him is you talked about the Wheeler thing. I mean, this line is the best version of this line that we've ever seen before. Who thought that the Jets were going to find someone who could come in and help drive this line to a place where it never reached when Blake Wheeler was here? Now, when Blake Wheeler was at his peak, there was a very young Kyle Connor on that line and a younger Mark Scheifele. So Blake Wheeler was definitely the driver of that line. But Gabe Vilardi is the young guy on that line. But the thing that stands out most to me, Ken, about the things that he does is like beyond, the amazing hands that he has. Someone I think posted it in the chat. I know that we caught this fairly early. I believe we were the first broadcast who tried to point out, and this was way back at the Wednesday night hockey against Detroit at the beginning of the year, where Kyle Connor hit his 500th point. When like essentially for the most part, when Gabe Vilardi scores, the Winnipeg Jets win. It's as simple as that. And what that means is that when he shows up at the right time, and he shows out at the right time. And that tonight is a perfect example. The Winnipeg Jets taking on the hottest team in the NHL, and he goes out and along with the Jets, the two hottest teams in the NHL. And Gabe Vilardi shows up and has 2 goals, right? And one of them, he scores them 2 different ways. One, he's, just playing catch in the slot, and boom, it's in the back of the net. So he uses kind of like that skill and that slickness that he's capable of to open up ice for himself. But the other one, like as good as that pass was, accepting that pass the way he did and getting that shot off and beating the goaltender with the kind of defender just basically on him and very close to being able to turn and chip that puck off his stick. Gabe Vilardi is a gamer. That's what he is. He shows up at the right time, and when he does show up, the Jets win. So I'll say this, as good as he's been, if you can unlock Gabe Vilardi, because last year in the playoffs, he was one of the guys that the Winnipeg Jets definitely needed more from. If you can unlock Gabe Vilardi in the playoffs, I like your chances, right? Because when he scores, he shows up at the right time to score, and the Jets are winning hockey games. So this is a guy to watch out for. It's not just all about personal best. It's not about him staying healthy, all those different kind of things. Those are all really, really big things. But Gabe Vilardi is a difference maker for the Winnipeg Jets. So if you get him playing the kind of game he's capable of playing at the right time of the year, and I like the way the Jets are trending towards the right time of the year, because they're doing what they're doing right now at a time of year where they typically struggle. Gabe Vilardi is the kind of guy who can be a game breaker and a difference maker in the playoffs. And that size sure helps, because he's basically has the skill to score from for, the kind of goals he scored tonight, but he's also got the size and the strength to stick it out in the toughest areas of the ice when it's going to be the toughest brand of hockey that we've seen all year.
Yeah, quick one. Sorry, Bick's got me here. 26 and 26 for Vilardi would give him 50, not 40. So, I mean, 16 and 26 would still be a pretty hefty pace to be scoring at. But like I said, 35 plus for Vilardi, mark it down. If he gets to 40, I mean, it's already going to be an exceptional season wherever he finishes off. But yeah, I mean, if he gets to 50, I mean, that'll be really exceptional. But, definitely 40 is a possibility, but comfortably to 40, 35, if he gets to 40, it's certainly possible. But it would take still a good heater.
TCB Lamplighter of the game. What do you got, Ken?
Yeah, I mean, either of the Vilardi goals would be under the qualifying stages, but I mean, this is a, eyes in the back of your head. Sorokin didn't even see it coming. So I'm going the Perfetti pass to Ehlers is my choice for Lamplighter. I mean, like I said, I was impressed by both of Vilardi goals as well, but I mean, tough to argue with the dish that was served by Perfetti on that one. I'm going with that one.
Yeah, I've got no issues with that. This is just another game. Okay, so to get to the point of when things get hard, this is another game. So Cole, Perfetti, the two biggest games that the Winnipeg Jets have had to play in the last little while were the Washington Capitals and the New York Islanders. And those are the two games where Cole pops up and finds a way to make a difference on the score sheet. And those are the kind of games that we were calling on this podcast for him to show up in. And this is just another example of that. He's down, he's grinding alongside of the boards. This is the whole thing about Cole. If he can put himself in the toughest areas of the ice where the puck is going to go, he's got that skill level that you saw with that pass. He's got those smarts. He understands going against the grain. When he is in those areas and he gets the puck, the chances are he can do something good with it. And he's doing it more and more. He's getting to the right areas and he's putting himself in dangerous places. He's capitalizing in the dangerous places because he's good enough and he's got the skills to get the pucks to the guy in the right places. It's so much better to see him down in these areas where they're the toughest areas of the ice than where I felt like I used to see him for a good chunk of the year, which was on the boards by the hash marks or up by the ringette line, which is where he seemed to want to set up his office. But it's like setting up your office on the outside of town when all the action is downtown. Now Cole has gone out and he's taken and he's sold the office on the outskirts of town and he's used the money to set up an office right in the heart of bustling Manhattan. That's where he's been taking things and it's been working. So I agree with you, Ken. For me, that is the TCB Lamplighter of this game because it's just good to see Cole going and taking that next step and continuing it. We're just seeing more and more of it. He's going to become the player everyone thought he could be if he keeps doing this. And the fact that he's done it the way he's done it this last little while, it makes me less and less concerned that he's going to get there. That's mine and Ken's TCB Lamplighter of the game. Doesn't matter what we think, though. Matters what you think. Share with us your TCB Lamplighter of the game. You're automatically entered to win a frosty, delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale brought to you by our friends at TransCanada Brewing Company. If you can't wait for Kenny and Renny to gift you your 8-pack, head on down to 11290 Kenniston. You can join them in their tap room for all kinds of great different beers that they have there. Great pizza, great food, great service. It's great. That's all I got to say about TransCanada Brewing Company. You know what's great is for Carson Courtvrand. It's great that he is the winner of the TCB Lamplighter from our last show. So you know what to do, Carson. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your full name. Send me an email, and I will send you a voucher for a frosty, delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale brought to you by our friends at TransCanada Brewing Company. It is the nectar of the gods. That brings us to the the Keg, hashtag the Keg Save of the game. What do you got, Ken?
A couple really impressive tip saves, but I mean, I just based on what was on the line at the time, I think it's got to be the save on Cizikas at the side of the net. I mean, this was one where Cizikas had more time than he anticipated. I mean, he would have liked to have gotten his shot a little bit higher, but this wasn't just a flub into the open glove. Hellebuyck still had to make a really good save to get over there and make the stop. So I mean that's my choice for Keg Save of the game.
Yeah, you know what? You talk about big and boring. This was anything but boring, but he still managed to get himself big by getting his whole pad over there. And then just, it's subtle. And you had said it, Ken. Cizikas had time to roof that thing, but it was his only option, because what had happened was Hellebuyck had put the glove out there very smartly about 3 to 4 inches above the pad, so that if you were going to try and thread the needle there, it wasn't, it's not like he stacked his arm and the glove right on top of his pad. He lifted it just enough to say, well, I probably can't go there. So now the only choice I have is to go up over the pad. And then you start getting into that thing. Well, if I raise it too high, am I going to be that guy who puts it right over top of the net and then throws his head back and looks to the sky? So to me, this is just, yes, Cizikas shoots the puck and hits it into his glove, which is fairly stationary. That said, Hellebuyck forced him to make a play, and he wasn't able to make that play. And that's why this game ends up not going to overtime or being 5-4 for the New York Islanders. It's why the Winnipeg Jets win this one and win their 8th straight. So that's our hashtag, the Keg Save of the game. Doesn't matter what we think, matters what you think. Share with us your hashtag, the Keg Save of the game. You're automatically entered to win a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 fine Keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg, each location finer than the last. And the winner from our last show, that would be Bart Oman. Bart, you know what to do. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your full name, send me an email, and I will have the fine folks at the Keg send you a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 fine Keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg, each location finer than the last. And that's it for us. Ken, anything to say before we take off into the warm sunset and surf?
Yeah, I mean, some people have been asking about a lot of Islanders players. Just did some sniffing around today, and it doesn't sound like I mean, again, we'll see how the next 2 weeks or 3 weeks before the deadline go, but I'm not anticipating the Islanders having a big sell-off sale. So people asking about Ryan Pulock and Brock Nelson and Kyle Palmieri, I just don't think that it's going to be in Lou Lamoriello's nature to be, having a garage sale at the front steps. And in terms of Pulock specifically, again, we know he's from Manitoba. He played for the Wheat Kings, captain of the Wheat Kings, great right shot D, plays with a physical edge, big shot. I just don't see him being available on the market. So, I mean, would the Jets be interested? Yes, but I mean, I don't see him being. And he's also injured, and we don't know how long he's going to be out, according to some of the people that I spoke with today.
Well, John Shannon was on CJOB with me earlier on. He thinks that Brock Nelson is going to re-sign now.
There you go.
It sounds like there was a 3-year contract offer extended. You got to remember, people set up lives. They've got families, and all of a sudden, if you're in a place, sometimes the easiest thing to do is just to stay put. Sounds like, there's belief building there. Mm-hmm. There should be, the way that team played here tonight, and the fact that they're missing, 8 players to injury or something like that, 9 players.
It's a lot, 6 to 8. Yeah.
I mean, I can understand that. The one I found surprising, though, Ken, was it sounds like Noah Dobson's name is being floated. What did you make of that?
Yeah, I don't know that's actually. I mean, that's on the rumor mill. I don't know. I'll believe it when I see it. I don't see him being available. Is sort of a short answer to that, unless it's an astronomical.
It would be crazy if he was. It would be crazy.
Yeah, I just don't see it. I mean, the Islanders gave up a little early on Devon Taves. I understand this is a different scenario, but I don't see that being a possibility. I want to get to one other thing here. Craig Zamzo, will Lowry be back right after the break? I mean, Scott O'Neill was a little bit lukewarm on that. I mean, it depends on how things go for him. It didn't sound like it was necessarily a slam dunk that he would be in the lineup against the St. Louis Blues. That was my interpretation anyway. Not saying it's super long term, but I don't know that it'll be right after the break. I mean, we'll have to see once the Jets get back for practices on the, what is it now? 18th is an optional, 19th is an official practice, and they'll get moving from there. But, and then Lambert quickly, I liked Brad, the way he skated today, Sean. He does get an assist. It's, an interesting play, obviously beautiful goal by Alex Iafallo to go, rooftops on that play. I don't know how that wasn't going to be a penalty on Bo Horvat. He water skied with him for half a zone before Alex Iafallo roofed his shot. I didn't see anybody's arm in the air. Anyways, I'm not trying to get on the officials. I just thought that was a very strange play. But I liked Lambert's game. I thought he brought some nice speed to that fourth line with Gustafsson and Iafallo. Again, did what he gets an assist, no shot attempts, one shot attempt. He had 3 hits, 1 giveaway, 1 block shot. Again, you're not playing in a top 6 role. It's going to look different for Brad Lambert, but I like the effort. He doesn't give you the same look as Parker Ford has on the, with his finishing ability in terms of the checks and getting on the forecheck. But I like Lambert's game. I think the Jets probably send him back to the Moose to get in some game action here. He had been around, but I spoke with Brad this morning briefly, Sean. He said he's been learning a lot even when he hasn't played, but I liked his game. I liked how he applied himself. I liked his defensive awareness. But I think he's got to go back to the Moose here for a bit and play a little bit more and then sort of see where things go from there.
Last thing before we go, do you want to weigh in on this? Charlie Dufault says, what's your Super Bowl picks?
I just have a hard time picking against Mahomes. I mean, he's at a level. I mean, again, Tom Brady is the GOAT. That is undisputed. But right now, the way that Mahomes is playing and putting the Chiefs on the precipice here of the first three-peat, I'm going to ride with the Chiefs. Though the one thing I would say too, I think that the Eagles' defensive line or front four very impressive. Saquon Barkley, I think, could give the Chiefs some serious issues, but I'm going to go with Mahomes here in a tight one. I don't think it's a blowout either way. I respect what the Eagles can do offensively with Hurts and their receiving core, and Barkley especially. But I can't in good conscience. I'm with Mason Appleton. Betting against Andy Reid and Pat Mahomes has proven to be a fool's errand of late. So I'm going to go with the Chiefs in a tight one.
I despise both of these teams to the point that I'm like,
well, especially the Eagles. You're a Cowboys fan.
Well, I'm a Cowboys
fan.
You
should despise them.
It's hard enough being a Cowboys fan and staying interested in the NFL, but like the fact that there's 3 teams that I hate above all, and it's the Pittsburgh Steelers and the
don't tell Scott O'Neill that,
and Sean. The Eagles and the Kansas City Chiefs. I hate these teams. For years I watched. I still say go back and look at the Super Bowl that the Chiefs beat the Seattle Seahawks. The reffing was a shame in that game. I thought it leaves a black cloud there. Now people don't remember that, but if you go back and look at like the way that game was officiated, it was pathetic. And they just seem to be one of those teams that always gets the calls. I am a massive believer in this thing about how the Kansas City Chiefs, tell me a call that has gone against the Kansas City Chiefs in the last number of years, and yet every call falls in their direction. It drives me nuts to the point that I'm not interested in watching it. That whole thing about the ball placement against the Buffalo Bills just sickens me. I turned it off after that because I knew where it was going after that. So this is just my way of railing and complaining. And yeah, you're right. I hate the Eagles because they're in a division with the Cowboys. And not long ago, we used to make fun. There was this really good meme on the NFC on that division that it said the Cowboys, and it showed 5 rings, and it said the Washington, the Commanders or the Redskins at the time had 2 rings and 3 rings for the New York Giants, and the Eagles had a bunch of lollipop rings, right? Because they never won any rings before. Well, they won that one now. Honestly, as much as I hate these teams, if I had to pick one of the 2, I'd rather see the Eagles win it just because I hate the way this run. Listen, I'm like, when it comes to journalism and all that kind of stuff, I believe in fairness. If I think things are getting skunked by the refs, I automatically hate that team. I didn't used to hate the Chiefs until the refs started making me hate them. So I would very much, if I had to watch one of these teams win, first of all, if both can lose, that would be the best. I don't think that's going to happen. But if I have to watch one win, I'd probably prefer it to win to be the Eagles, which is why it will be the Kansas City Chiefs, ladies and gentlemen, probably with a good flag thrown in that somehow just manages to benefit them.
Roughing the passer.
That's how I'll see it go. Anyways, that's it for us. Thanks for tuning in, everybody, and listening to us do our thing. One last little kind of had a little bit of fun before we shut it down for a couple weeks here. We're going to miss you guys, you guys and gals in that time, but we're also going to make sure that we recharge and come back strong out of that afterwards. So I will say this before we do let you go. If you appreciate the conversation happening in this space, as much as we appreciate you tuning in to listen to us rant and rave in this space, we would hope that you appreciate our sponsors who fight to keep the conversation going in this space. For us, that's Vittorio Rossi, Pristine Roofing, Cambrian Credit Union, Sweet Lou Furlan, the Kenny and Renny OGs in the Johnston Group, the Keg, and of course, Trans-Canada Brewing Company. Thank you to them. Thank you to all of you. We will see you after the break. Enjoy it, everybody. Bye-bye.